Aloha, everyone. We'll just wait about 1 minute for everyone to come in, and we'll get started in just a second. So, yeah, thank you for being here. Okay, aloha and welcome, everyone. This is the Vision Zero, or Honolulu Safer Streets Plan public workshop, our first for the meeting. And we're very excited to share with you, and most of all, hear from you tonight. We have the honor of having our City and County of Honolulu Department of Transportation Services Director, Roger Morton, who's going to say a few words to set us off on this meeting. Director Morton, thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure to be here, and I'd like to send out an aloha to all of our people that have joined us today. Vision Zero, for those who wonder, where did we get that name, is really a global program that's been embraced by many countries around the world. Some of the chief ones, besides the United States, some of the early pioneers were countries like Sweden, other Scandinavian countries, the UK, and other countries around the world. And the idea is that a life is a precious thing, and that it is all of our responsibilities to do everything we can to preserve life whenever we can. Now, here in Hawaii, what has really should shock all of us is that at this point, we are losing one life about once a week. We have a fatality rate of maybe 50 to 60 people per year that get killed on our roads on Oʻahu only. In addition to that, we have maybe more than 300 people that are seriously injured every year on our roads. So this is a job for everybody. If you look on a national scale, we lose more than 150 people a day to tragedies on the roadways. If you think of that, 150 people a day, more than that, that's a plane crash every day. And yet we are complacent about, if it occurs on the roadways, it's dispersed, it's all over the country. It just doesn't seem to have the impact that we would have if we just considered it to be like an automobile. What should have all of us concerned here in our country and in Hawaii is that for virtually 40 years, we've seen a long-term decline in deaths and injuries on our roads. And there's been many, many reasons for that. Some good engineering, some better vehicles, lots of things have contributed to that. But what needs to be really of concern to us is over the last 6 or 7 years, our trend has reversed. And we're now seeing more safety crashes and other things in our country. And our peer countries, other industrialized countries around the world, with 1 or 2 exceptions, are continuing to see a long-term decline and have got to the point where their roads are now, they have less crashes per 100 million miles than our roads. And so for all of us at the city, we're joining a Vision Zero program. We're going to be joining our colleagues at the state of Hawaii who also have a Vision Zero program. And we're going to be joining our national counterparts throughout the country who also operate or try to operate a Vision Zero program. Now, today we've got a presentation to show, and we want to show it to you. But mostly what we're interested in today is to listen to you and to your comments, and hopefully you'll join us in embracing Vision Zero as we go on. I'm going to be watching this presentation. I'll be available to answer questions if they're directed toward me. But at this point, I'm going to turn it back to Daniel so we can get the program started.
Thank you, Director Martin. Yeah, so hello everyone and welcome. So I'll give a quick overview of our agenda. So do some quick introductions. Director Morton did a good quick recap of what is Vision Zero, but we'll delve more into that. We're going to talk quite a bit about the crash analysis we've done to really understand the nature of our problems. And then we're going to spend a good chunk of time delving into some of the solutions, some of the initial solutions we've identified. And we're going to be hearing from you throughout this. So to the introductions. Just quickly, so this is a City and County of Honolulu Department of Transportation Services led project. I'm the project manager, Daniel Alexander, and we also have two of our key project team members here tonight, Christopher Clark and Renee Espiau, and they're really important for advancing this project. And of course, also honored to have Director Morton here. And I'll just note, we have Kaylin Bubloff with us too from DTS. And we have a great consultant team that you're going to hear more from tonight. That's PBR Hawaii and Nelson Nygaard, and they've been doing some great work for us in advancing this project. Next slide. So pass it off to Teresa here, who's going to tell you some about how to participate during this meeting.
Thank you, Daniel. So we have a number of opportunities throughout the presentation for you all to provide your feedback and experiences with the team. Please look for the question mark icon at the top right corner of the slides that will indicate an interactive component, including polling or whiteboard exercises. At the end of the presentation, we will also have a breakout room session where you can have an in-depth discussion with a member of the DTS team on a topic of your choice. I will provide a general overview of how to use the tools, but this will be geared to those of us who are joining from a desktop or a laptop computer. If you're using your phone or the Zoom app, the functions and the layout will be slightly different. And unfortunately for you folks that have joined us today on your phones, you won't be able to interact with our whiteboard activities. So please know that you can always just put your comments directly into the chat box, and we will include those in our whiteboard sessions if you would like. Also, if you would like to speak during our interactive sessions, please use the raise your hand function at the bottom of your screen, and either myself or a member of our team will call on you. So just to give you a brief overview of the Zoom functions, first, for the polling, when prompted, the Zoom polling questions will pop up on your screen. So you can choose the response that you would like and then hit submit at the bottom of the pop-up window. Again, if you want to provide an answer that is not included in the polling response, you can always add your response in the meeting chat. Next question, please. Or next slide. For the Zoom whiteboard, we'll have two opportunities tonight to provide, to give you guys the opportunity to use our whiteboards and give us detailed feedback on some prompting questions that we'll provide to you. You'll have the opportunity to use an interactive toolbar on the left-hand side of the screen when we launch the whiteboard. You can add a sticky note or text or use icons in response to our questions. And during these exercises, we just ask that you're considerate of others' comments, try to leave enough space for everyone to participate, try not to erase other people's comments, and just keep it cordial. So, and please know that all of your responses will be moderated by our team, and all of the responses will be available for the public to see. Next slide, please. I think I will pass it now to Daniel.
Thanks, Teresa. So what is Vision Zero? So Director Morton gave a great introduction. Vision Zero is a concept and a policy. The concept is that traffic deaths, people dying, walking, biking, driving on our streets is unacceptable, and that we can and should do something about it. Like Director Morton said, it's not necessarily our new idea. It's something that's been embraced by countries and municipalities across the world. Part of what's bringing it here, of course, I'm going to get into the safety issues, which is the real impetus for it. But our elected officials said this is an important thing that we should be looking at. In 2018, the City and County of Honolulu City Council passed a resolution urging that we embrace Vision Zero as a city. And in 2019, the state of Hawaii, the legislature, adopted a law saying that Vision Zero is the policy of the state and mandating the counties to adopt their own policies. So I'm going to move on to a couple videos that we have, and these are really meant to kind of set the stage and why this is an important issue and kind of get us thinking in a Vision Zero mindset.
Kahiao had a bright personality. He wanted to make a change wherever he could.
Kyle loved football. He hoped to one day play for a college team.
Hannah was vivacious and meant to do such great things in life. Their future was denied by speeding and impaired drivers.
So last year, 213 people died on our roads. What do you think would be a more acceptable number?
Acceptable? 70 maybe? Probably 70.
Can you send 70? Actually, this is what 70 people looks like.
It's my family.
So now, what do you think would be a more acceptable number?
0. 0.
So, you know, as Director Morton shared in his introduction, the reality is we're experiencing on Oʻahu, on average over the last decade, a fatality on our streets every single week. Yeah, it's you know, it's each one of those is a story, and it really is a staggering number, and you know, a problem that must be addressed. There's the next slide, please. So one important concept in Vision Zero is to move away from referring to crashes as accidents, because an accident is just something that happened and you can't do anything about it. But if we change that mindset, we view it as a crash, there are things that we could do, both as individuals and different levels of government, as a community. There are things that we can do to prevent that from occurring. We can remove those risks. We can try to put up safety barriers at different levels, and we can work hard and towards eliminating those fatalities from happening on our roadways. So that's really a concept at the heart of this, and we're going to talk, you know, more about the solutions later on. But that's really at the heart of what we're looking at. Next slide. So we did want to hear from you. You know, as the gentleman in that video went through, you know, calculating in his mind what a realistic target was, because we are talking about a government target, but we're developing our target for you know, when and how many traffic fatalities, and that relates to investments we must make in the streets and changes we must make. And we do want to hear from you all on what you think an acceptable target for traffic deaths on Oʻahu is. And I think Ty is going to launch up a poll here, and we'd love to hear from you all. And you can see the answers there, both on the side and in your poll. So we'll leave this open just long enough to let you all in the next 20 seconds or so. Looks like we're up to 30 out of 48 of you. Maybe a little bit longer. Hopefully we can get most of you in there. To 36. Okay, I think we'll call it there. So, good to hear, and that most folks that are here in this room that are on the same page, that Vision Zero should be our target. The zero is the acceptable number, and what we should aim our actions toward, and set us the target we're attempting to achieve. And of course, some folks that think maybe a higher numbers is what we should be targeting as well. So I think we'll move to the next slide here. The next, so there's the target, and then there's the date. When are we going to try to achieve this by? And keeping your target in mind, when do you think we should attempt to achieve that target by? So we'll leave this open. Similar time, we got up to close to 40 responses last time. Hopefully we can hear from at least as many this time. I think we'll end it now. So you can see most of you want us to have a really a more aggressive target, bringing that data as quickly as possible. 2030 will be identified, and we didn't identify an earlier date, but I can imagine if we did, many people would have supported that as well. Some folks think we need a bit longer. It's one thing as we're developing this plan, it's both hearing from people what our target should be, but we also need to map out the actions, the physical changes, policy changes, that sort of thing, and think about, how we're going to get those in place, and when they'll be in place and achieving those safety benefits. So next slide. When we talk about these numbers, and an important part of Vision Zero is, humanizing the fact that, we're going to talk a lot about statistics today, but we always want to remember that every one of those is its own story. This is Azalea Park. She was killed by a drunk driver in 2021. Her mother, the reason that this article was done, her mother is, now a champion and trying to prevent drunk driving and get the streets to be safer. But really, I think just something we want to emphasize and carry forward throughout every one of these is a story, and emphasize that point of, Vision Zero is that the acceptable number is that no one dies, because every one of these is a special person. And next slide. And I'm going to pass it off to Teresa here to do an exercise with everyone.
Thanks, Daniel. So throughout the month of November, the project team participated in a number of community events, and we had conversations with community leaders to learn more about everyone's lived experiences. We posed the question, who in your life do you hope will benefit from safer streets on Oʻahu? And the resounding response was our families, our friends, and everyone. Next slide, please. So we're going into our first whiteboard exercise of the evening, and I'm hoping that this could help everyone get familiar with the features of the whiteboard tool. So the question we're posing to you folks is, who in your life do you hope will benefit from safer streets on Oʻahu? As we launch the board, I'll walk us through the various functions of the platform and help everyone get some practice on adding some comments for our next whiteboard session. Again, if you're joining us from your phone, you can enter your response into the chat, or you can raise your hand and give us your feedback verbally. So let's go ahead and launch the board. Give us just a moment. Okay, so I see it on my screen. Everyone should be able to see it as well. The toolbar should be located on the left-hand side of your screen. You can move your cursor over each one of the tools to see the functions that are available to you. If you cannot see the toolbar, move your mouse over to the top of your screen. You'll see a view options drop down. Click on the view options, and then you should be able to select annotate. And then the toolbar should pop up on the left-hand side of your screen. All I ask is that we don't use the pencil or drawing tools. If you want to leave a comment, it's best to use either a sticky note or a text tool. At the bottom right-hand side of your screen, you should be able to see a zoom in and zoom out option so that you can navigate through the board. And at this time, if there are any participants who would like to share their feedback verbally, you could just raise your hand and we'll call on you, and you can give us your opening comments or just general feedback on the tool that we're using. I see a lot of people are getting into it. It looks great. I see responses like students, everyone, kūpuna. I see a very large sticky note. Thank you guys. I hope that everyone's getting comfortable using the tools, being able to resize your comments, place them on the board. I see there is one person who drew a star. Our only request is that you don't use the drawing tools. It's difficult to actually write, and there's no like drawing component to it. So, but I appreciate everybody else using the sticky notes, putting in your text comments. It looks great. I don't see anybody raising their hand to give their verbal feedback, so I think most people are comfortable using the whiteboard. I see a few people entered the chat. Excellent. My 3 stepchildren, everyone in my life, that's great. My cycling friends, yes, all cyclists. Excellent. So as people are filling out the responses, and I see everyone having different sticky note colors and that type of thing, are there any questions about how to use the board? Seems like everybody appears to be fairly comfortable. We're going to keep all of these responses, and it will be available in our notes section at the end of the presentation once we publish the notes. Really appreciate everyone's participation. It was great. My family. I personally have a 4-year-old, and I like to walk her down to the beach. So for me, my answer is my daughter. And as she grows, I'd like to have her walk to school and ride her bike. Okay, I think we're probably at about time. So if everyone can finish up their last thoughts, and then we'll go ahead and close the board. Let's give everybody maybe 30 more seconds. This is great. Okay. Thank you, everyone. I hope that you all feel comfortable using this board. Again, we'll have a second session later on in the presentation. We will be posing a number of different questions that we would really like your feedback. So thank you for participating. I think we can go ahead and close the board. Give us just a minute to switch over to the presentation again. Are you guys able to switch it back? technical difficulties. Give us just a second. Are you folks able to reshare the presentation? I don't see it on my screen.
Sorry, I'm having a little trouble sharing.
Oh, no problem.
Thanks for sticking with us, folks, through these technical challenges. Looks like we're getting our presentation back up.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, great to hear from everyone. So many people that we care about, and that we want to have a basic thing of being able to get around safely. And yeah, great to hear from you all. So I'm gonna get into some of our crash analysis findings, and this is really important and helping shape our plan. So let me jump in here. So we've done a really detailed crash analysis. We worked with the Honolulu Police Department and the Hawaii DOT to get all the crash reports and do really detailed analysis on them. And we focused in on crashes where we're seeing the worst outcomes, fatal and serious injury crashes, and also for those people walking, biking, not within a car, all injury crashes, because they could potentially very easily have been serious injury or fatal for someone that lacks the protection of a car. And we're focused on surface streets, so everything we're talking about does not include H1 and limited access freeways. So next slide. So here this chart shows both the fatalities and the serious injuries. So you see for every fatality we have substantially more serious injuries. These are people that might have life-changing damage to them and that they have to cope through. And in many instances could have easily been a fatality if not for luck. And so we've really looked into those, and as we've highlighted, there's been one fatality every week on average for the last 10 years. And some of the highlighted trends that we've noticed is we're seeing an increase in serious injuries and fatalities associated with speeding. And one interesting thing, we did include 2020 in our analysis, despite it being a very peculiar year. And even though traffic was substantially less during that year, we did not see any reduction in fatalities or serious injuries. So next slide. So this map shows the darker colors are where there's a greater concentration of those Vision Zero crashes. And what you can see is clearly urban Honolulu, very, very dark. And that kind of tapers off along the edges, spreading from roughly Kalihi to Kaimuki. And you can see in some of our smaller community centers like Waipahu, Wahiwa, Kaneohe, Kailua, where there are slightly darker shades. Those are areas that we want to focus on. But we do know that our greatest concentration of issues is in our urban core. Next slide. And we did look at where our issues are occurring by streets, and tried to identify the street types where we're seeing these. There's two street types where we're seeing really disproportionate share of issues occurring. Arterials, that's a term we use for our really large streets that have a lot of traffic on them, and they tend to be 4 lanes or greater. And the two examples there are Waimanu Home Road and Ala Moana Boulevard, and not limited to just these two streets, but these kind of illustrative of the sort of street where we're seeing problems on arterials. Next slide. And then main streets, we did also classify streets, and this is more based on the surrounding land uses. So a street like North King Street there through the core of Kalihi, where you have lots of businesses and associated pedestrian activity, lots of activity on the streets, and Bishop Street and King Street intersection there shown in downtown Honolulu. So these are the two street types where we saw disproportionate share of issues. So next slide. And in terms of those impacted by it, people walking are seeing a really disproportionate share of our fatalities. Despite obviously a lot more miles of travel occurring by car, and having a much smaller percentage of people walking as their mode of transportation, we see they make up almost a third, or over a third of all of our fatalities are people walking. Another point, which really a point of shame for us, is that our kūpuna, those over 65, are disproportionately represented in our traffic fatalities as well. It shows the number there that they make up, 4 out of 10 of everyone killed on our streets, and yet, less than 2 in 10 of our population. So it really is impacting our older population adversely, and something we need to address. Next slide. So we want to take this opportunity to get your perceptions on what's causing fatal and serious injury crashes, and kind of identify which one, it's only a single choice, which one you think is maybe the primary culprit. And we'll leave this open for just a little while, and hopefully hear from you on what you think. Just a few more seconds. All right, Ty, close it out. So, people thought speeding was a major issue. So 61% of you thought speeding, and then inattention, and then failure to yield and impairment is smaller. So on the next slide, we have somewhat the answer. It's not exactly the answer. I will note that this overlaps. So you can have speed and impairment in a crash. So these numbers don't really tally to 100% because some of them overlap. But you see within our fatal crashes, and this is off of what police reports deem to be the contributing factors. Inattention, impairment, and speed are all about equal as contributing to a third of the fatalities, and failure to yield about a tenth of those. So, these are all prominent issues that we need to address, and different solutions for them. So we'll get into the solutions later. Next slide. This just delves into the speeding issue a little bit more. So, as you get the worse outcomes, fatalities, speeding plays a more prominent role, and so you get closer to minor injuries. It plays less of a prominent role in serious injuries, somewhere in between. But in fatalities, it really is a substantial contributing factor to them. Next slide. So I'm going to get into some of what we found about different modes and the crashes that are affecting different modes, people walking, we'll start with. Crossing and crosswalk, that is one of the primary actions that pedestrians are doing when they get hit. And it primarily involves 2 different movements for motor vehicles. And it's different based on whether you have a signalized intersection or traffic signal. where it's at traffic signal, left turns are a really prominent issue, and where we're at uncontrolled crossings, that's where there's no signal. Motorists going straight are a prominent part of that. And then crossing outside of a crosswalk involving motorists going straight, so that's somewhere outside of that crosswalk area, those are the three kind of primary crash scenarios that we're seeing. Next slide. For people biking, we found that most of these injuries are occurring where bicyclists are not in bike facilities, and they involve either motorists coming from a cross street or being hit from behind. In some cases, having someone turn in front of them. And then intersections are a primary issue, and generally involving someone turning or cutting across their path. Next slide. For those in motor vehicles, the main issues here were hitting objects, and that's running into a parked car or running into a tree. And there's a lot of overlap with impairment and speeding on this front. Majority of these crashes involve impairment or speeding, not simply someone totally cognitively and going the safe speed running off the road, but generally someone that's speeding and or also inebriated. And broadsides are very common. So that's where a vehicle is passing through an intersection and they get hit from the side by a vehicle that's going perpendicular to them. Next slide. And we are, as part of this project, we're going to identify our streets, specific streets, not just the street types, but the specific streets where we're seeing disproportionate issues. We have done a preliminary analysis. I emphasize it's preliminary. That's why we're showing it to you at this scale, because we still have work to do on it. But we have identified that preliminary list by bicyclists, pedestrians, and motor vehicles. And you can see for bicyclists, it's largely concentrated in the Honolulu urban core. The only one outside is within Kailua. And then for pedestrians, it's similarly concentrated in the urban core. The only ones outside are in Oʻahu. And for motor vehicles, it's a little more scattered. You see some places on the windward side, Kunia Road. You see someplace on Waianae Coast. And then also we do have some concentration in the urban core as well. And this is something as we refine this and get to the point where we're satisfied that we've done the analysis right, something that we will be sharing at a later point. Next slide. So I believe I handed off to Teresa here to lead some discussion with y'all.
Yeah, great, thank you. So we are going into our second whiteboard session. We're a little bit behind, but we're going to give folks about 10 minutes for everyone to provide your reactions to the data findings. After the allotted time, we'll conclude the discussion and then resume the presentation. Also, please remember that the content of the whiteboard will be available for public review. So if you could go to the next slide. We have a number of different questions for you folks to respond to on the whiteboard. The first is, what resonates with you from the crash analysis? The second is, what else would you like to know about crashes on Oʻahu? And the third is, did those trends point out specific systemic needs or opportunities? So at this time, we'll go ahead and launch the whiteboard. Great, thank you so much. And actually, I don't see the questions posed on our screen, so we may have to zoom out a little bit and try to navigate to the questions that we have added to the board. Give us just a few minutes to try and navigate to them. If not, though, you folks are more than welcome to go ahead and enter your responses into the blank section that you see. Again, the questions are, let me pull them up. What resonates with you from the crash analysis? What else would you like to know about crashes on Oʻahu? And did those trends point out specific systemic needs or opportunities? If you're joining us from your phone and you would like to raise your hand and provide a comment, please do so. Feel free to do so. Oh, I see that all the comments are coming up really small on the screen, so I think we zoomed out. We zoomed out quite a lot. That's okay though. Oh, things are jumping around. That's okay though. I see people are starting to enter their responses into the whiteboard, which is great. I see a comment, would like to see percentage of traffic fatalities adjusted for population. It's great, great feedback. I see a few people are entering their comments into the chat. Thank you so much. Do we have anybody who wants to raise their hand at this time and give us some verbal feedback? Let's see. Thank you so much for adding the questions into the whiteboard. I'll go ahead and reread those questions for everybody. What resonates with you from the crash analysis? What else would you like to know about crashes on Oʻahu? And did those trends point out specific systemic needs or opportunities? I see a comment on cycling statistics resonating with you. That's wonderful, excellent. Let's see. People are walking and biking disproportionately impacted by traffic violence. That's great. I'm seeing some more people entering into the chat. This is great, you guys. Thanks so much. And if you're having any problems with adding in a sticky note, feel free to just use the text option and provide the text directly onto the board. You don't necessarily need to add a sticky note, although I think that's great. Just a side note too, that if you folks are using the little hand tool to move the whiteboard around, it's actually moving for everybody. So if you could try and leave the whiteboard static just on the page, that way everybody knows where they're putting their comments, that would be great. I see a few that are really detailed. The text is kind of small, so I'll try my best to read them. Would like to know if crashes occur due to jaywalking in well-lit areas. Great. Are there any fatal pedestrian accidents in parking lots? I don't think we looked at parking lots or like private spaces.
Teresa, we did. It's a category within the crash reports. I'm not looking at the numbers exactly right now, but I know there have been cases of pedestrian fatalities in parking lots. But when we look at it, collectively within the data, it's a pretty small percentage of the issues for pedestrians.
Great, thank you for that, Daniel. I see we have one hand raised from a telephone number. If you have some comments, you can go ahead. It's 808-291-1740. Oh, if you're speaking, I cannot hear you. Can anyone else hear him or her? No, I don't think we can hear you. It looks like you're muted now. You may have to unmute yourself on Zoom and unmute your phone. I don't know if that's helpful. I see more people are adding onto the whiteboard, seeing some really great feedback. I see, so heartbreaking to know that our kūpuna are disproportionately impacted. Yes, I agree. It's a startling statistic. I see that activity is kind of slowing down. We'll give it, let's see, maybe one more minute to go ahead and wrap up our comments. I see someone entered into the chat, based on the current data, what is the statistical relationship between using crosswalks or not, and then the time of day? Thank you. Let's give everyone about 15 more seconds. Oh, I see somebody is raising their hand. Who else? Let me see. Was it the same person? Okay. If you are 808-291-1740, I think it's the same hand. If you have any mana'o you'd like to share at this time, go ahead and try. If not, I'm going to go ahead and lower your hand, just so that we can see if there's any other hands raised. And then if you have a comment, please make sure to add it into the chat box, and so we can record it and respond to it. So thanks, everyone. In the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and close out the whiteboard. I really appreciate everyone's comments and participation. If you want to answer more of those questions, feel free to add it into the chat. So, oh yes. And also, if you folks are having any trouble technologically right now, you can always just email us or submit a jot form. So we have our team contact information available at the end of the slide. So you folks will have plenty of opportunities to get in touch with us so that we can respond to your questions and your comments. So let's pull the presentation back up, and then I will hand it over to the Nelson Edgar team. Great, thank you.
Daniel, I think you were going to talk for a second.
Yeah, so really great to hear from everyone. Adding to the crash findings, hearing that it resonated with some of you, adding questions that we should be prodding and asking the data, and then also a lot of seeking solutions. We need to move towards action. We're about to move to that, and I know Drew, our consultant, is going to set the stage for the safe system, and then the actions within that we're going to be exploring more. So yeah, pass it off. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. We've started to engage people at the community events and in focus group conversations, as Teresa talked about earlier in the meeting. Start understanding where there are challenges to traffic safety on Oʻahu. And this quote on the left comes directly from that one of the events, and also the conversation we're about to listen to, which illustrates that people experience our transportation system differently based on their history and their lived experience, and not only in the way that transportation engineers intend them. So if you could please play the video.
I remember my mom, they used to walk around the neighborhood. And then they came one day, my mom and my mother-in-law, and they were laughing, talking stories. And I'm asking, what's so funny? What's happening? They're like, oh yeah, we were trying to cross the street, and me and her were arguing which one was the right one we should, follow. And they're crossing Mauna Lua. Mauna Lua, you know how Mauna Lua come down and then you go onto the Waimalu exit and it goes up into Pearl City. So they're crossing Mauna Lua from that side, mountain side, to go down Taiyeh and, you know, like the Prosley Shopping Center. That's a busy crossway and it's not a funny story. So, but they were making fun of each other. Like my mom was like, I told her we should walk when the hand is up because the hand is calling us. And then my mother-in-law was like, no, I told her we should walk when the image of the person is walking. So that was a first lesson for me, like, because I was able to speak English, you know, and understand, it was easier for me to learn that. I realized my mom and my mother-in-law didn't really quite get that. And they came home lucky they didn't get into an accident, you know.
Josie shared her story with us, and we'll be sharing a QR code at the end of the presentation. I encourage you to share your story with us about your lived experience with our traffic safety on the island. And Josie points out something very important, that there are many parts of the transportation system that need to be shored up to create a shared experience of safety. And if we want to change, we can't approach traffic safety the same way. And the city and county of Honolulu and the state of Hawaii are working to define a set of actions to reduce and ultimately eliminate traffic deaths and serious injuries on our streets by thinking differently. On the next slide, we illustrate that we're undertaking a planning process that looks at safety differently, because we're recognizing a shift in the way we think about safety. The shift is embodied in moving away from a set of traditional principles where we treat all crashes as equally important, look for ways to reinforce or teach individuals to behave more safely and react to crashes after they happen. We're moving towards what's called a safe system. We're moving towards a set of safe system principles that acknowledge that people do make mistakes, and we all have a responsibility to proactively create a safety net to prevent crashes from having severe or fatal outcomes. The safety net, on the next slide, please. The safety net will be made up of 5 elements that work together to reduce death and serious injury through accommodating human mistakes and reducing the impact of crashes when they happen. This approach includes safeguards in planning, design, enforcement, operations, criminal justice, and also policy choices to create safer road users, timely post-crash care, safer vehicles, safer speeds, and safer streets. Actions will be adopted as part of our planning effort to shore up each of the safe system elements. The resulting safety measures within each element of a safe system will create kind of a redundancy or a safety net that prevents crashes from happening, firstly, and then keeps those that do happen from having severe or fatal outcomes. And I'm going to spend a few minutes providing an overview of each of the safe systems elements and some examples, and we look forward to hearing your ideas about actions that can shore up each element. And I encourage you, as we go by, to please drop in your ideas in the chat. So the first safe systems element is safe road users. All road users should be prioritized on the road, not just drivers. Safe systems need to consider people who walk, who roll, who bike, who take transit, or use other modes of travel. Furthermore, people must take responsibility for the fact that we can each impact other people who are using the road that we're sharing. Safe road user strategies can include things like safety campaigns, sharing information about how to use new infrastructure, safe routes to school programs, campaigns that support people thinking more seriously about the speeding as a social concern. A second element is post-crash care. On the next slide, please. Post-crash care acknowledges that crashes will continue to happen, but people involved with crashes need to be supported and immediately receive high quality care if they're injured. Looking ahead, also in this post-crash care system element, police and road managers will learn how crashes occur and implement changes to prevent similar crashes from happening again. Examples of actions in the post-crash care element include crash investigation teams, including people from multiple departments like public health and police and transportation, family and in-hospital incident response teams to support people who are involved in crashes, and their families. Support for people who are whose primary providers have been incapacitated or seriously injured as a result of a crash and maybe not able to support the family and or loved ones in the way that they used to. Nimble emergency medical system EMS fleet vehicles to get to crashes sooner. Supporting level 1 and 2 trauma centers to be ready to take people in who have been involved in crashes and immediately provide them care. And of course, we're looking for other ideas from you. Safe vehicles. Safe vehicle elements include safety measures such as safety measures that are built into vehicles, which can protect people both inside and outside a vehicle. And then active safety measures can prevent crashes. Active safety countermeasures can prevent crashes from happening. These are things like automatic braking systems, the things that have been being built into the cars over the years to make them safer for the people inside of them. But also we can acknowledge that there are opportunities for active safety measures that prevent crashes and passive ones that minimize the harm from crashes. Other ideas in the safe vehicle element acknowledge that larger vehicles cause more serious damage when they're involved in crashes. So we look for ways to use smaller vehicles when it's possible. Some examples of safe vehicle elements actions include truck guards, buying smaller fleet vehicles or using smaller vehicles when you can, using electric cargo bikes and bikes for city business or corporate business, building infrastructure to support connected vehicles, and trying to advance the regulations on vehicle production so that car manufacturers are required to build in more active and passive measures to protect people who are outside of the vehicles. There are two more safe system elements. There are safe speeds and safe streets. Safe speeds. To reduce fatalities and severity when crashes do occur, streets must have lower speeds. This requires redesigning streets with lower target speeds built in, lowering speed limits, and enforcing limits to ensure that people follow them. Safe streets, similarly, look at the road design. Roads can be designed and operated to prevent crashes and to reduce injuries and fatalities when crashes do occur. This can be done through physical infrastructure that reduces conflicting actions, such as by separating different modes into different lanes or separating them by time at signalized intersections and improving visibility. Some examples in this category, these two categories include lower speed limits, speed enforcement, traffic calming, protected bike lanes, roundabouts, road reconfigurations, all things to help to build in a slower speed environment for people driving and supporting mode shift into more active modes. So we'd like to spend the next part of the presentation talking about the tools available to create slower speeds and safer streets, those last two elements of the safer system. And we're going to do that first by introducing some terminology. The built form or infrastructure and improvements that help to support slower speeds and safer streets are called countermeasures. They're tools that are proven and promising to reduce traffic deaths and serious injuries. They can be projects, they can be programs, they can be policies, and many of the tools that are available to us have been studied to understand the potential for them to reduce future crashes and specifically serious and fatal injury crashes. Next slide, please. Over time, researchers have been able to document the countermeasures that are most effective for specific crash types. So we select countermeasures by first looking for the ones that are applicable to the crash types that are most frequently occurring on Oʻahu. And then we ask how effective are they at addressing these different crash types. The level of effectiveness, or the crash reduction factor, is a measure that describes the percent of crashes that can be avoided in the future when these countermeasures or tools are applied. the more stars in our slides that follow, you'll see that each of the different countermeasures have stars associated with them. The more stars associated with each countermeasure, the more proof there is that they are highly effective at reducing crashes. Some countermeasures don't yet have proof, either because there haven't been enough studies completed yet to enter the Federal Highway Administration's research database that we pulled these tools from. So on the next few slides, we're going to focus on the crash types that are most frequently resulting in serious and fatal injury outcomes, describe why addressing the crash type is important, and introduce some countermeasures that have proven or promising results in reducing the risks associated with those crash types. And then again, the stars on the following slides are a reflection of the level of crash reduction effectiveness. So first, why are we concerned about speed? Crashes caused by speeding are increasing on Oʻahu, and speeding is often a factor in impairment or hit object crashes as well. It's important to address speed because speeding decreases the driver's peripheral vision, making it harder to see things on the edge, which is often where the most vulnerable people are, the people walking or bicycling. Secondly, people traveling at faster speeds take longer to stop, and they might not have enough time to stop before someone who's sitting in this, before hitting someone in the street. And as we saw on the previous slide, higher speeds increase the likelihood of death during a collision and decrease the likelihood of recovering from a collision. In fact, at over 50 miles per hour, 90% of people walking who are hit will have a serious or fatal outcome. All the measures that we'll talk about on the following slides reduce speed to help to increase drivers' awareness, shorten the amount of time it takes to stop, and reduce the severity of crashes that do happen. So some design countermeasures to reduce speed. There are many tools out there, and many of them you've seen. The tools out there to bring speeds down along streets and at intersections include speed humps, road diets, traffic circles, and some things you might not have seen, like turning wedges. Turning wedges are new to Oʻahu. Would be new to Oʻahu. They are vertical posts or rubberized corners that slow people's turning speeds as they move around the corner. Next slide, please. In addition to some of the design tools, and there are many, many more, and we'd like to hear from you when we go into breakout rooms, what other actions you might think that we should consider. On this slide, we show technology and programs that are being tried in many Vision Zero cities. Speed cameras and speed feedback signs are very effective ways to enforce and reinforce speeds without requiring traffic stops, which can be risky. Campaigns are helpful to reinforce new changes or to increase awareness of the impacts of speed. As an example, lowering speed limits are good complements to design changes, but not proven by themselves. Now we're going to turn to people walking at intersections. People walking make up 36% of people killed in crashes. They're much more vulnerable to being badly injured than people inside cars. Intersections are focus points of activity where complex decisions are being made related to finding safe crossing gaps, finding gaps in traffic for making turns, and in addition to the complex things that happen at intersections, on the bigger streets, people walking can be especially difficult to see because there's just so much going on. So drivers yielding to pedestrians is critical for safety, both at intersections and along street lengths. A tool that some communities use to create increased awareness that people driving should stop for people in crosswalks is the driver report card signs, which you see here on the right. They document the percentage of drivers yielding to pedestrians over time. They're typically deployed in coordination with engineering and education measures to increase yielding and improve safety, and have been shown to do just that, increase drivers' awareness that it's the law or the rule to stop for people waiting to cross the street at crosswalks. And this is a tool that we're looking specifically at here. There are many tools available to support people crossing at unsignalized crosswalks. Many you're familiar with, but some are relatively new, including rectangular rapid flashing beacons and other signals specifically for people walking, which are very effective. They're very effective. And other tools are speed tables, some of which you may have come across over the last few months because there are many that this data that the Oʻahu Department of Transportation are putting in. There are many ways to install these tools, either using curbed landings like the pedestrian crossing refuge here, which gives people walking a simpler task of only finding gaps in traffic from one direction at a time, or using quick build materials like the curb extensions at the bottom, which make the crossing distance shorter and reduce people's exposure to cars using very cost-effective materials. So in addition to the tools at unsignalized crosswalks, there are tools for signalized crosswalks. Traffic signals separate conflicting movements in time, but sometimes people get the signal to cross the street as a walker. At the same time, drivers have permission to turn. Also, it should be noted that when people run a red light, for example, the speeds are typically much higher and cause more severe injuries. So a traffic signal by itself isn't necessarily the best solution for some of the crashes that are happening isn't necessarily the best solution to think of right off the bat. Countermeasures to supplement traffic signals are important. Countermeasures on this page that are being trialed in other communities include centerline hardening, which adds a vertical component on the center line that separates separates traffic moving in different directions. This vertical element causes drivers to slow down when turning by making a more of a right angle turn, so as to avoid going over the rubberized center line. And protected left turn phases can be installed, which hold left or right turning drivers until after the pedestrian phase is completed. As you can see, some tools are useful at both unsignalized and signalized intersections. Next slide, please. Now, not only are kūpuna overrepresented in fatal and serious injury crashes on Oʻahu, but we also know from international data that they're more vulnerable to crash impact. Just as one example, at 30 miles per hour, 62% of people older than 60 are likely to die from a collision compared to only 5 to 7% of young people. So we want to pay special attention to shore up the safe system elements to protect them. Next slide, please. Marked crosswalks by themselves are effective and can be made more effective in complex situations with enhancements such as the ones on this page. You can see that the pedestrian crossing refuge island can be constructed in permanent or quick build materials like the one on the lower right. They are a proven effective tool for all age groups. Other tools include a leading pedestrian signal that gives pedestrians a head start before cars turning left or right. Get a green light. Crosswalk lighting helps improve visibility in darkness. And while curb extensions aren't yet proven, we know that they shorten the crossing distance and exposure to traffic, which supports older folks who walk more slowly. Well, this section is about protecting people who are riding bicycles. People riding bicycles are getting hit while riding on streets without dedicated bike facilities. Many Oʻahu streets lack bike lanes, which creates a safety concern for people riding bicycles. People riding bicycles are commonly hit at intersections, and we need to define greater protection for people in those situations, riding bicycles. Simply slowing traffic down will help prevent crashes involving people bicycling from having serious or fatal outcomes. So speed countermeasures like we saw before, like speed cameras, are a useful tool. Also road diets, which reallocate space and might allow space for bike lanes. Research also shows, and it was revealed in the King Street Protected Bike Lane study as well, that bike lanes and protected bike lanes are effective at preventing future crashes. Off-street paths are great investments to support mode shift to walking and bicycling, as they provide protection and complete separation from drivers. At intersections, people bicycling are particularly vulnerable, just like people walking. When there are bike lanes approaching them, they are sometimes dropped to make room for general purpose travel lanes to reduce delay. The green painted tools in this slide, like the bike boxes and bike lanes through the intersections and protected intersections, provide space for people bicycling and also lend clarity as to where drivers should expect people on bikes to be. Methods for reducing conflicts due to turning motorists include diverters, which prevent through and left turning traffic where there are alternative routes for drivers to take, and traffic circles. As you'll remember from the quiz, distracted and impaired driving crashes result in more severe outcomes. Strategies that cause people to drive a slower speed will make inattention and impairment-involved crashes less severe. Mistakes in judgment should not result in fatal outcomes for drivers, their passengers, or other people on the road. Some of the tools available to prevent people veering outside of their lane, which often happens with people who are impaired, include median barriers, rumble strips, and wider edge lines. These cues can alert drivers. Designing in slower speeds overall is also effective in reducing the severity of crashes if they do happen, regardless of the level of impairment. Finally, enforcement and education programs such as sobriety checkpoints and saturation patrols can have focused impacts in locations where impaired driving crashes have occurred, and in general reinforce a message to not drive impaired. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Teresa.
Thanks, Drew. So we now have a 10-minute breakout session where you can talk directly with DTS staff on the countermeasures that we just discussed. We'll have 5 breakout rooms. Each one will cover a specific countermeasure. You can see the rooms listed on your screen there. When we launch the session, a pop-up window should appear on your screen where you can select the topic area of interest. If you do not see the pop-up window, you can move your mouse to the bottom center of your screen and a toolbar should appear. You can choose the breakout room icon and then select the breakout room that you want to use or attend. If you need help selecting a room, please raise your hand and our team can help get you folks situated. So if you move on to the next slide, we've also prepared a couple of questions to help guide our discussion with our breakout room facilitators. So those questions are, what about this crash type prompted you to join the breakout room of your choice? How open are you to the countermeasures proposed in this presentation? What other solutions would you like us to consider that weren't raised here tonight? What concerns, if any, do you have with the strategies that have been proposed? And what are the acceptable trade-offs you are willing to make to guarantee safer roads for all? So those are the questions that we have for you folks, and we can go ahead and launch the breakout rooms. Okay, great. It looks like the pop-up window should show up for everyone. If you're having issues selecting your room, please raise your hand and Tai Shiramizu from our office will help you join your room. Thanks, folks.
Hi, Joseph.
Hey. I don't see the screen. I was hoping that in the cycling or bicycle room.
Is it not showing up for anyone? All right, I'm just gonna send you all one by one. Joseph, did that pop up for you? Okay, there he goes. Laura, which room would you like to go to? We can all just put it in the chat if you'd like.
Okay, let's see here. Ty, are we getting folks in their rooms?
The pop-up hasn't showed up, so I'm gonna go ahead and filter people one by one. I'm not sure why it's not coming up.
Okay, folks. I appreciate your patience as we get everyone in their rooms. I see a couple of hands raised.
Can you repeat the numbers again of what room is which one?
Yeah, sure. So we have the first pop-out room people crossing and crosswalks, that's room number 1. We have tools to protect kūpuna, that's room number 2. Tools to reduce speed, so if you want to talk about speed, you can go to room number 3. Tools to support people riding bicycles is room number 4. And tools to curb impaired and distracted driving is room number 5. Are some folks seeing the pop-up window, or is it no, for no one? Let's see, broadcast.
Can we just walk through folks' names and assign them, Teresa?
Yeah, I see people are putting in the chat. Let's go with Laura, Ruby. What room would you like?
5, please. 5.
Okay. 5 is biking. Is that the one you want?
Oh, no, it's the curb protection and all that.
Oh, curb protection. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. Impaired and distracted driving.
Sorry about that, everyone.
Okay, I see Ruby. Marufa?
Hi, is there any room for pedestrians?
I'm sorry, for which room?
For pedestrians? Like I usually just walk in the neighborhood or...
Sure, so we have, for pedestrians, we have crossing and crosswalks or tools to protect kūpuna.
Crossing the crosswalk.
Okay, I'll put you in right now. Thank you. Okay, let's
put
see.
you in room 4. Oh no, I cannot.
What? Oh, I see our phone number 808-291-1740. You raised your hand. Where can I place you?
What if I eat?
Could be put in number 1.
Oh, sure.
Room 1.
Okay. Room 1.
See? You gonna put your towel on the toilet.
Okay.
I'm gonna put your towel on the toilet.
The mailbox. Let's see. We have a few people still undesignated. If you want to raise your hand, I can call on you.
Ty, can you put me back in the distracted driving room, please?
Okay. Anthony Chang, where can I put you? Room 3, okay. Room 3 is speed. Okay, I just put you in. Charles, I see you're holding up the number 3, so I'll go ahead and put you in the speed room. Okay, great.
Teresa,
Let me know if you don't
go
see
ahead
it.
to your room.
Okay, all right, great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Need me to assign you?
Will you assign me?
Give me 1 second. Don't accept that one here.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Any other room preferences for anyone?
Hey, Ty, can I go to room 4, please?
Yes.
Cycling.
Is that
Thank
Caroline?
you. Yes, from
Hi.
STEM.
Oh my
Hi.
goodness. I saw your name and I was like, could this be?
I know. I saw
Long
you.
time no see. I hope
Oh
you're
my
doing
gosh.
well.
Small world.
Super.
I actually just left STEM recently, but we'll have to catch
Oh,
up.
I heard. Yeah, Davin had texted me. Cycling, yeah?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for being here.
Mhm.
I should have gotten the invite. Michael, any room preferences?
3 is okay.
3, that's the speed room, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Natalie, would you like to go somewhere?
No.
You're just gonna hang out here?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
How about 808-398-9622? If you want to go somewhere, just unmute or you can put it in the chat for me.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. It looks like we're all rejoining the main session. And actually, it looks like we are all back in. So we can go ahead and share the rest of the PowerPoint presentation. We have a few notes on messaging that Drew at Nelson Nygaard will share with us, and then we will conclude the meeting. Was Katie back? Let's see. Yes, she is. Okay. Give us just a minute to pull up the presentation.
So that's great. And I'll just start talking before Katie gets there.
Okay.
Just for a few minutes more, we hope to keep your attention. In this section, we like to share some insights that we've gained from other cities about how to create a shared responsibility for safer streets by, excuse me, by shoring up the safer people, safe systems element. Something that we'd like your input on is how to share the message that our speed choices have a direct impact on the safety of the other people in our community. And what we've learned from other cities that have more mature Vision Zero programs is that effective safety campaigns depend on partnerships and developing and sharing the message, and that data should inform the message. Most particularly, that means that also what we've learned is campaigns that blame victims or address issues that aren't actually causing fatal or serious injury crashes are not effective in many ways. Because they're not salient to the issues and they don't help people slow down. So as we think about some of the work that we're looking forward to, next slide, please. We're trying to inform a message where we help to create a safety culture where people acknowledge that their choices in speeding can have an impact on other people using the road. And the considerations in this message are that we'd like that, excuse me, creating a message that includes consideration of shared responsibility that is empathetic, that is accessible to all people, and that is equitable. Will be part of the final considerations as we think about how to move towards supporting people in making safer speed decisions. And so we shared what we know, though, as a basis on the next slide, please, of speeding is that there are a lot of things that we told you here about tonight related to the impact of speeding, and and we'd like to have your insights on the poll of what you think would motivate other people to make more conscientious decisions, to stop and think about the impact of their choices on how fast to drive. Do you think people would be more responsive to a message that shares how likely it is to kill someone at different speeds, how long it takes to stop at different speeds, how speed impacts your visibility on the road, how speeding saves little time but can have grave impacts, or maybe there's another message that you think would help people to stop and think about changing their behavior to keep other road users safe. I can't see the poll anymore.
For other, go ahead and put it in the chat.
Oh yeah, thank you, Dan.
If you have another idea.
Great. So it looks like 15 people have responded. Let's give it a few more minutes or a few more seconds, actually, for people to respond. I know it's a rank order question, so it may take a little bit of time for people to navigate through it. Since we are running late on time, we'll show the results fairly quickly. And then, of course, you'll have the opportunity to see our presentation and the meeting notes and everyone's responses later on the project website once those get published. So looks like we're about 85% of those who would like to participate. So I'll go ahead and end the poll, and I'll share the results very quickly. Again, we really appreciate your participation on this, and we will get a graphic that shows the results in a much more palatable and interesting way once we publish the meeting notes. So at this time, I think we can move forward.
Great. So I think people think how likely it is to kill someone at different speeds is would be the more highly motivating message. Next steps. Daniel, do you want to take it or shall I?
I'll go ahead and finish this out. So yeah, thanks to everyone that's stuck with us through the end. I know we've lost part of our crowd, but you know, appreciate all the engagement and input we've received tonight. So next slide, please. We do have, you know, some of those personal testimonies we shared earlier. We do have what's called a jot form, and there's a URL there, or you can flash up your phone on at your screen, and you can go to that'll take you to that URL. We'll also be posting this presentation by end of day tomorrow, and you can find it on our website as well. And that should just share some stories about you know, how these issues are impacting your life, and kind of hopes and you know, dreams and needs for our streets. So we will be doing a more comprehensive online survey that we plan to launch in the new year, and yeah, look forward to people's engagement. And if you're yeah, so we do look forward to also emailing you as part of our Complete Streets newsletter, where we make that available to you, and hopefully get you a response. So one important thing, we will be identifying our high injury streets and intersections. This is a really important piece, and we will be making that public early next year. And we will also be launching some education campaign at this point, likely focused on speeding. And thank you for the input you just provided. And we do plan on having a second meeting where we come back with our solutions and, you know, more of the plan developed. And we plan on doing that mid 2023, and look forward to your engagement at that point. And I think that's it for us now. So really appreciate you coming out. You obviously care about this issue. I care about making our streets safer for our community. And you know, this is going to take you know, a collective action, and we really appreciate your engagement in that process, and look forward to continuing it as we make a difference together. So hello everyone.
Daniel, can I ask, I put this in the chat, but I don't think the question was answered. Will the Vision Zero action plan include recommended policies for City Council or for DTS to adopt?
Yep, that's one of our tasks. One of our items that we will do is have legislative recommendations, and those you know, can be both state level and city and county level. So yeah, thanks for that, Kiana.
Thank you, appreciate it. Good night.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, everybody.
Right.